A lot of people, even I still do it sometimes. I look up there.
Yeah. Okay.
Hello guys, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm here with a very lovely guest. I connected to her through her podcast. Ayobola Deborah is her name. She's going to talk more about what she does and who she is and her podcast and everything, but this is going to be an amazing conversation. We're going to be talking about all sorts. She's just someone who speaks with wisdom, I believe, and depth. But when you now tune into her podcast, which you're going to do after this video, I promise you.
Do you know how I feel?
You'll see.
Do you know how I feel? Do you know when they invite people to church?
Yeah.
Guest speaker, and then they're doing like
the introduction.
Bishop Anderson. And then they sit there and do this fake humble thing.
Oh.
Is Ayobola Deborah, born and bred in London, oldest of 5 kids. So work-wise, I work in finance and technology. After all the complaints and vulnerable customers the company has, it's a startup, so it's still quite small. It's growing super fast, so there's a lot of work to be done. Outside of work, what do I do? I'm a singer.
Hey!
I can sing of your love forever. I can sing of your love over the mountains and the sea. Your river runs with love for me, and I will offer up my heart. Oh, I am happy to be in the truth, and I will daily lift my hands, for I will always sing of when your love came down. Thank you guys so much.
Writer, songwriter, naturally. Not naturally, actually. There are writers that don't write songs, but I'm blessed to do both. Podcaster as well. My podcast is called Being with Ayobola Deborah. Yeah, I'm just an all-around lover of all things good.
The first thing I was so excited to talk about was your live show. Like, how was it, the journey of putting that together? I did a live show earlier in this year, Barriers, and you know, the last podcast when you were talking about the morning, how you felt, all your emotions, like the range of emotions, I was just like, this is exactly what it feels like. But tell us about it.
Where should I start? Okay, so I think for me, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, you know when you're good at something and people know that you're good at something, they put this expectation on you, right? That this is what you should be doing. Sometimes they're right, and then sometimes it's great because they kind of point you in the right direction. But then other times you feel this immense pressure to perform and to deliver, to meet those expectations. And I've had a very complicated relationship with me and singing. It's always been up and down. Marrying the singing and conversation together is something that isn't necessarily being done yet in the way that I wanted to do it.
By the way.
Right, thank you. October last year, for whatever reason, I just decided to start writing certain things down. And I wrote down that one of the things that I wanted to do was a live show. And then this year, which has felt very different to other years in terms of me as a person, my mental growth, emotional growth, how I've been developing and evolving into being who I am supposed to be. Right? How is she smiling?
Because I just feel it. I said I need to have her in.
As I was just kind of like evolving and growing, I was realizing I was neglecting that. Although I'm like in church, I'm in the band, I'm leading worship, I'm doing all of these things, this specific thing that I needed to do wasn't being done. Brought out the podcast in April. That was fine. That was one thing on the list. I ticked that off. Then it was like, okay, the show. Are you going to do it? And you know, like doing the show is a lot of work, right? Especially when you're doing most of it on your own.
Where's the team?
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
But I mean, you have people who will support you on the way.
Yes, of course,
Definitely.
absolutely. But I was just like, and I think I'm very independent and I can be a bit of a perfectionist sometimes. So I want things done a certain type of way, and I'm only just now at the age of 29 learning how to ask for help, all of those things. So it was a very difficult process, but I was determined in my mind, despite the severe levels of anxiety that beset me. Honestly, it was unlike anything. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating properly, I was eating drunk. Like it was really bad, but I knew that there was something behind what I wanted to do. There was something more. It was more than just getting dolled up, standing on a stage and having people watching you.
Thank you.
There was so much more to it, and that was what made me determined, despite the tears on the day, despite all the crying and everything, and made me determined to go ahead and do it.
Tell me about what you wanted people to feel from the show.
I think that there isn't enough conversation around the fact that for the first, say, arguably, depending on which path you choose to go down, for the first 18 to 21 years of your life, things are pretty much set for you, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, you're born,
Yeah.
your parents are looking after you. You know, once you get to the age of 3, 4, or maybe even earlier these days, you start going to nursery, then you go to school. So come September every year, you get a fresh start.
Yeah.
In fact, you get 2, because you get September and then you get the actual new year. Yeah. So that is decided for you. Your ideologies, your thought patterns, the way you behave, everything that you do, your belief system is formed in those years based on the environment you find yourself around in. So like your parents, your friends, your school, if you're a person of faith, your church or the mosque, wherever it is that you are, it's formed a lot by that. But then come the age of 21, if you choose to go down the traditional route of going through education all the way through to 21, 22, you're thrust into the real world, as my mum likes to refer. Adulting, there you go.
Yes.
You're thrust into that.
Yes.
And you're expected to know what you're doing. You're expected to know who you are. You're expected to know what you want to do. You're expected to know why you're here. And nobody talks enough about how traumatic this decade and the decade and a half, I think up to like 35, maybe even up to 40, how traumatic it is trying to figure out who you are independent of anyone else's like steering or navigation. And for me, anytime I come into contact with people, eventually the topic of purpose will come up. Purpose and intentionality and authenticity. Those are things that will come up in conversation, because when you have those 3 things in alignment, when those things are aligned together, you become the best, most authentic, truest, most beautiful version of you, right? And there's so many different ways of doing that. People are doing amazing things. So you've got YouTube, like you're doing. People are doing music. People are doing drama. People are doing so many different things. And they're all different avenues of purpose. Different avenues of being able to reach people. And for me, I have to use what I have been given to reach people. And reach people in a way that's relatable to them. And so for me, singing, having conversations with people, even writing is an avenue for me to reach people in a different way.
One thing you also mentioned in your podcast, that tears are words that you can't speak, you can't express. And that really touched me, and that's where my notes on the shack came in.
Okay.
I remember watching the movie, and towards the end, I think it was where, no, I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not going to say it.
There's a garden scene, basically.
And he has to give something and bury something. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
From then I started to cry. I was watching my mum and auntie, and they were probably looking at me thinking, calm down, it's only a movie. After the movie, do you know what I did? I went upstairs and I sat down, and it was just like, that scene kept replaying in my mind, but instead I just felt the burden, so much burden. It was just like all these burdens I've been carrying for years that I didn't even realize. I was getting on with my day. I thought I was fine. You know? My parents are great. My siblings are great. I thought I'm fine. What am I looking for? Adulting showed me that I'm not. But I got upstairs and I was just crying, and I had no words. I couldn't articulate what I was feeling, but I was just knowing that something was so heavy. When you're talking about the shack, forgiveness and everything, it just really took me to that point. Tell me about a time in your life, if you are happy to share, that you've just cried tears that you can't fathom, and what release that gave to you.
So crying is something relatively new to me. So
you said it's just that one tear from your left eye.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, the thing, I think for me, it's not that I'm emotionless, but and this is part of the reason why I'm in therapy, just trying to understand a lot of things.
The church
I shut down. So I might cry when something happens, right? For like a minute or 2. After that's done. I don't go back and revisit that emotion. But it's on the inside of me, and it's festering, and it's causing, it's a problem. It's only recently now that I'm learning to allow myself to cry, allow myself to feel, and to sit in those feelings, not to wallow and be self-pitying myself, but to sit in those feelings and process those feelings, because that is part of the healing. And I think for me, the day of the show, I cried a lot that day. I think I made a mistake of going to therapy in the morning, right? And we just had like a conversation where I was literally just crying, sitting there. She was just waiting for me. She was being patient. She was just, she said, no, Deborah, you need to cry. And I think God understands our limitations, right? He understands that sometimes the intensity of the emotions that we feel silences us and we can't actually articulate them. That is why he created tears, right? For us to find a way to release. When Lazarus died and Jesus went to the tomb and the Bible says Jesus wept, yeah? If you actually look at the root translation, sorry guys, I studied literature, comparative literature, so translation. Root of that Jesus wept, or those couple of verses, what it is that, and when I was reading this commentary, the comparison it made is to, when a horse neighs or brays, that's strong. So what Jesus was doing, he was groaning on the inside. It was a deep depth soul groan. That's what it was, because in that moment he didn't have the words to express how he felt. Yes, he's God Almighty, but he was in the flesh, right? So he had his limitations.
Everything we had,
So he was limited in that moment, and so he wept. And those tears that he wept said everything that he could not say. So yes, crying can be uncomfortable. Yes, crying can sometimes be embarrassing. When people are looking at you and you just look a hot mess.
We're encouraged to not
cry
as much.
Yeah,
don't cry, don't worry, you'll be fine.
And I think it's a cultural thing as well.
It's not talking about
having said all of that, it's good to cry. Not to stay and just be crying non-stop. No, that's not what we're saying. You cry, you let it out, you process, and you take the next step. We were designed to live moment by moment. It's only us that tries to jump ahead of things and try to have everything figured out. So in that moment, if that moment requires that you need to cry, you need to let it out, wipe your tears, keep it moving.
I think that's so key what you just said, and I think you can tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
That's partly the essence of what you do now with Just Being Deborah. Because you said something again in your podcast. I'm always going to refer to a podcast, and that's how I connect to them. Thank you very much. You said that young people, sometimes we focus on, what we want to do or where we want to go and what we've come from. But then in the moment, in the present, we forget that. We forget to just be. We forget like the essence of who we are. Tell me about that. Tell me about how you got to realizing that, hold on, this moment, I'm missing bits of this moment, How do you just sit in a moment? How do you just be? What does just be mean for you?
I think when people ask me that question, what does being mean? And I'm saying it means exactly what the word means. It means just to just be, and whatever that looks like for you, but in that moment. Like you said, we spend so much time thinking about all the things that have happened beforehand, right? Whether it's the glory days or the sad days. Oh, the good old days back in the day. Oh, do you remember when we used to do this? Ha 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 ha. Or do you remember when this happened? Oh, cry. We're thinking about that so much. And then in the present, focusing on all the things that we have to do, all the things that we want to do, all the things that we desire. Rather than focusing on the present moment and relishing and enjoying the moment, because it will never come again. If you're with someone you love, right? When you're with that person, if it's someone you really, really love, right? Say for example, a partner, like a husband or whatever. When you're in that moment, when you guys are talking and you're laughing and whatever, you're not necessarily thinking about the past or the future. You're just in that moment. And that's what God wants for us, to live with Him like that, moment by moment. Not always thinking. And that's not to say that looking back is a bad thing. It's not. But it's a bad thing if you stay there. That's not to say looking forward is a bad thing, but it's bad if you stay there. Because if you stay there, then you're not going to move forward. Like, you're going to forget about what's happening here and now. And so for me, being is more than just being with Ayobola Deborah. It doesn't start and end with me. That's why it's being with Ayobola Deborah. Because the next thing, because it's being with Tissy. Our lives are made up of moments. Right?
Yeah. And
each moment leads to this moment or to the next moment.
Yes. This year that there's a lot of moments in my childhood that stuff that were important happened, but because I wasn't there.
You were present.
I wasn't present.
Yeah.
I was there, but I was so much of, I want to be an adult. I want to start driving. And now I'm here I've missed key moments there because I was focusing on getting here.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how I got here now. I'm now having to piece back stuff together and take time in trying to just being and enjoying now.
Yeah. So it's so important, and I think we cheat ourselves so much by not allowing ourselves to enjoy the moment. And it's not just about being in the moment, but it's being in the moment authentically and
that's the word,
and intentionally.
Yes,
right, those things are so important, and being purposeful about every single thing that you do, because all the little moments that sometimes are insignificant, they lead to the big moment. Right, it's everything is process. And I think we're so obsessed with time, we're so obsessed with
like we have
targets and goals, like we really don't. We don't, you know. If we don't, and if we just kind of took our minds off of that for a second, for a moment, and lived in the moment, purposefully, intentionally, authentically, we would be so much happier than we are.
I have to get this question off my mind before I close this.
Okay, I'm scared.
Don't be scared.
Okay.
Firstborn child.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
You're a girl.
Yeah.
I'm a girl too.
Yeah.
I'm a firstborn child. We need therapy group,
a support group.
Yeah, just something for all of us.
We
give me one word to describe that experience of being a firstborn child and being female.
I can't give you one word, but I'll give you a phrase.
Go on, sis.
Like being a mother to children you did not give birth to.
Thank you. Yes. Juice snack word would you give those watching at home?
Be yourself and find out who yourself is. I was speaking to another colleague who wasn't able to make the show, and we were talking, and she's 24 and she was just sharing how she just doesn't feel like she knows what she wants to do, she doesn't know who she is, she doesn't know what she wants, all of these things. And I was saying what I said at the beginning about the pressure to feel like you've got it all figured out, and the fact that this decade and a half of your life is you discovering who you are, and there's no time limits to that. So I was sharing that with her, and I said, be yourself and find out who yourself is. Take yourself out. Let me say it to you, take yourself out. You know, if it means you have to go to a restaurant and sit by yourself, then go and sit by yourself and have a good meal in a nice fancy place. I used to do that all the time, you know. I went to one nice restaurant in Piccadilly. Everyone looked at me when I came in, oh, are you expecting somebody? No, it's just me, bring me the menu. Let me enjoy myself.
Hey.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I took myself out, I would go to plays by myself, I travel by myself. I started reading a lot more, watching documentaries, finding new ways to learn, trying new things. That is how you discover who you are. That is how you discover who your authentic self is. Not the self that society tells you to be, not the self that you see on social media, not the self that your parents or your family or your church or whatever faith you ascribe to or no faith you ascribe to. You become who you're supposed to be and not who everybody else tells you that you should be. And that process takes time. They're constantly learning things about each other. If people who have been married to each other say that married to each other for years and years say, oh, I've learned something new about you every day.
Think about the relationship with yourself.
Do you know? Exactly. Your relationship with yourself is so important. Whether you believe it or not, every single one of us has a purpose. Every single one of us has something that we're here to do. Don't ever feel like your life is pointless. There's no reason. You're here for a reason. You were specially and uniquely designed to be you, and you do yourself a disservice when you don't live up to that. The pressure that we put on ourselves to be something other than who we actually are is what is driving people to mental illness, is what is driving people to depression and to anxiety. That is what it is. The pressure, the immense amount of pressure through different mediums, through different channels, whether intentional or not, is what is killing a generation. So be yourself in the environment you were created to function in.
I think one thing that people should definitely take from this is just learning to just take time, create the time for you, create the time to understand who you are. Because the essence of being is just you knowing what is it you're supposed to be, who is it you're supposed to be, and then you can be that thing. And apologetically, that word, I love it, but I struggle to say it all the time. My last question, if your life was to be described in a hashtag, what would it be?
I have no idea. I've never thought of such a thing in my life before. This is gonna sound really strange.
Go for it.
I am.
I am.
Yeah.
I am that I am.
Yeah.
I am.
Just think about it. Just that statement that God made when he said I am.
And
it's about being.
Right.
There you
Right. And this is what I actually thought when I read down that question. I thought what you were gonna say is being, and then I thought no, let me ask anyway.
Yeah.
But I am is just being. I am now. I am yesterday. I am tomorrow.
Yeah.
I would always be.
Yeah. Within that, I am is she was, she is, and she will. So I am.
Makes sense as to why my name on Instagram is I am TeeTime.
Well, they see. You've even got it. That's it.
I am.
Yeah.
Those two words are very powerful.
Very, very, very powerful.
I am.
And whatever you attach to that is what you actually are.
This has been emotional, vibrant, fun, depthful conversation, and I hope that you can only agree with me on that. So thank you, sis, for taking time to come here. Guys, please connect with her on her podcast. Tell them where they can find you.
Ayobola Deborah on all platforms. That's Facebook, Chitchat, and Instagram.
Let us know what you liked. Let us know what you learned. Let us know if you have any questions as well.
And I'll direct you to people if I don't have the answer, because I don't have the answers
you know,
either. Like, we can connect each other. That's what we're here for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's start a conversation. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in again, and I'll see you in my next video.
Bye, y'all.